Hi, I'm Lynn Catalano. I'm here today to teach you how to read the room, identify toxic relationships, and rise above the chaos. Did you ever see in the back of a magazine, sometimes they have a guide on what not to wear? Well, we have these don'ts, these professional don'ts in our relationships as well with our employers, our employees, our clients, these non-negotiable don'ts. So I have a story for you about a don't that happened to me with someone I know very well. I know them really well. It's shocking. It'll be a shocking story. So anyway, I'll never forget the day. I was at an outdoor party when I was approached by Greg, the CEO of the organization I had recently left. When I left them, I left on good terms, and they were about to become part of a larger system. And the system CEO had asked if I would please serve on their board of directors. I was flattered, so I agreed. So Greg told me that soon after I had left, he was approached by Bob, someone I know very well, who said to him, "Why would you ask Lynn to be on the board of directors when I'm available?" Well, I don't know about you when you receive shocking news, but I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. I felt the color drain from my face. I felt the heat rise. I thought about little else after that moment. And it made regular conversations with Bob rather difficult as I now knew this information. So I really knew that I had to confront Bob. Even though Greg had no reason to lie to me, I no longer worked for him. So I confronted Bob. Bob, first he said it was a misinterpretation. Then he said it was a joke. He was joking. And then he said that Greg asked him for his resume. I must have looked shocked because he said, "Are you calling me a liar that Greg didn't ask me for my resume?" Anyway, Bob was backpedaling. Bob was gaslighting me, changing the reality of what had occurred. So I needed clarity. The lawyer in me needed to just get confirmation from Greg. So I went back to Greg. Was it a misinterpretation? Could it have been a joke? Did you ask him for his resume? Greg's answers, no, no, and no. So Bob gave me that narcissist apology where he said, I'm sorry I ever spoke to Greg. Not I'm sorry for how it hurt you or how it affected you or gutted you. So, I'm not this person. I'm not this type of leader. I'm certainly never going to do this to anyone else. I'm not my father. So Maya Angelou famously said this quote, I'm going to paraphrase, they will forget what you said, they will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So I'm here today to help you learn to read the room, identify toxic relationships, and rise above the chaos. So today's the day. What's stopping you from achieving success? Today's the day. Stop giving yourself permission to fail. Tell yourself time's up. What are you going to take away from today? I hope you take away a concrete plan, a plan to commit to something, a plan to make a change, a plan to change how you respond to these toxic individuals and learn to cope and succeed. So, who better has taught us the importance of learning to read the room than the great philosopher Kenny Rogers did in 1978. Kenny taught us you've got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, know when to run. You never count your money. When you're sitting at the table, there'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done. Please excuse my terrible singing, but I know you were singing along with me. Anyway, Kenny taught us how important it is to learn to read the room. So what is reading the room? In my very simplistic way, reading the room is the opposite of being oblivious. Reading the room is showing that you have high emotional intelligence. What's emotional intelligence? It was first recognized in 1990 by two researchers and later popularized by Dan Goleman in his 1996 book, Emotional Intelligence. So it is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions and recognize, understand, and influence the emotions of others. So basically it's knowing that you have value, but you are not the only person on the planet. So what is emotional intelligence is really the opposite of narcissism. And narcissism is defined in the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, which is accepted by all healthcare providers in the US and in the world, as real egotistical behavior that is self-centered and destructive to others. Narcissists tend to put their own needs first and step on people if they get in their way and sometimes hurt them on purpose. Leadership experts have long focused on the importance of emotional intelligence and what it brings to an organization. Exhibiting empathy, building relationships, building trust, more efficient teams. So I was hired by a foundation when they had only incorporated on paper. They had 4 volunteers for their executive committee, and that was it. So I was brought in to make it a fully functioning fundraising foundation. Well, I literally wrote the policies and procedures. I set in place benchmarks and campaigns and annual events. I fully engaged the board, and I raised more than $5 million in endowment where they had none when I began. Did this make me invincible, irreplaceable? No, because emotional intelligence means that while you have value and you bring value to the organization, that one day someone else will do your job as you're not irreplaceable. So knowing that, I knew that my greatest contribution was that I left the place better than when I found it. So Koreans think so highly of the concept of reading the room, they came up with a concept for it. They call it nunchi. Well, nunchi is the art of understanding what people are thinking and feeling. They learn it at a very early age. If everybody's walking up the right side of the escalator and there's a teenager slouched on the left side, the parent will ask them, "What's wrong with you? Don't you have any nunchi?" Nunchi concerns the awareness of who is speaking, who is listening, who apologizes, who interrupts. From those observations, conclusions can be drawn about the relationships and the pecking order of a group. People don't describe someone as having good nunchi, which is less important than having quick nunchi. One needs to process this information quickly and be able to act accordingly. The outcome of quick nunchi is that the person will be able to read the room and improve their chances of success, build relationships and connections faster. So overall, quick nunchi is what we all need for success. So how do we achieve it? Well, there's 4 relatively easy steps. The first step is find a nunchi guide. Well, here I am, but since I can't be with you at all times, you need to find someone that you know who acclimates quickly in any environment and follow their cues. 2, listen more than we speak. So the Greek philosopher Epictetus said that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. You know, nunchi and emotional intelligence involve practicing reflective listening. More on that later. This helps you develop and express great empathy as well. 3, who remembers Miss Manners? She was the utmost expert on etiquette in printed media for years. Well, figure out the proper etiquette of the situation and follow it. People are actually more comfortable when everyone else abides by the same rules. And 4, read between the lines. People don't always say what they're thinking, so you need to pay specific attention to the context and what is not being said. Again, this is really practicing empathy and awareness. Okay, so reflective listening. Really, reflective listening employs 2 steps. Very easy. 1, the listener is listening to understand what the speaker is saying. And then the listener repeats back the concept to the speaker to confirm that it's been understood correctly. So this is really a method of hearing and comprehending that requires focus, intent, and active participation. This approach demonstrates the listener's authenticity and commitment to the conversation. I believe it's enormously difficult to build relationships without practicing reflective listening. Listening may be the most important skill we all possess. Putting someone else first as it's not about you. Listening without responding. Giving affirmations that you understand, you get it, you hear them. Remember Epictetus's quote, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we listen twice as much as we speak." Have you ever been in a situation where you could tell that the people in the room did not know how to read the room? I was. So he was a colleague of mine. He was a narcissist. His name was Dick. Dick was hired by the organization when he had no experience in nonprofits or fundraising. My role at the time was to assist donors in planning their legacy, their philanthropic legacy, finding funds that matched their passions, and getting executed documents and funding sources. So Dick invited himself to a meeting that I had one day with a donor. This donor was recently widowed, and I knew that it was going to be the kind of meeting that required practicing reflective listening and a lot of patience, as this particular donor had never made financial decisions without her husband before. So anyway, we greet each other, and Dick immediately interrupts and says, "Oh, good, Lynn, you're taking notes. So when we're done with the meeting, please type up the notes and email them to both Rose and myself." What did Dick do? Dick belittled me, and Dick set the tone for the meeting that he was in control and that he and I were not on the same team. So I ignore this, and I proceed to ask Rose some very pointed questions. She reveals that she really wants to support this certain organization where her husband had a great affiliation, and that while she wants her children notified of what's happening with her legacy, she knows that they cannot be directly involved as they each live out of town and have their own careers and families. Okay, so I listen to this. Dick immediately launches into this proposal that he had just presented, this cookie cutter proposal he had presented the day before to another donor, about how she could do this fund with multiple beneficiaries, and organizations would prepare grant applications and submit them, and her children could serve on a committee that would review the applications and meet once a year and determine which funds should go where. I just stared blankly at Dick. This was the opposite of what Rose just told us she wanted. So I continued, and I proposed to Rose that she have one fund that would benefit the one particular organization she mentioned, that would generate enough income annually to have impact at that organization, and where we would notify her one designated child annually of what was happening, and if they ever wanted to participate more, they could. Well, Rose breathed an audible sigh of relief. She was so relieved there was a choice other than Dick's. She left us and said that she would complete the paperwork the following week, and she was grateful for the meeting. So she leaves. Dick looks at me and says, "I think that went well, don't you?" Dick was a narcissist. Dick was only speaking to elevate himself. Dick could not read the room. Dick had no nunchi. Don't be Dick. So I completely believe that good things come from building your own network of relationships. So now you know how to read the room, practice quick nunchi. You have high emotional intelligence, and you know how to listen reflectively. Well, what happens when you encounter a narcissist? How does a narcissist present in the work culture? Well, they present as toxic individuals. So whether this is your coworker or your colleague or your employee or your boss, how do you recognize them? Well, I've come up with 10 characteristics for you to be able to easily identify this toxic personality. They don't always have to possess all 10 characteristics, but more than likely they do. I'm sure you've seen this person or encountered them, unfortunately, in your career already. So let's start. Number 1, they do not take responsibility for their poor decisions or their actions. You know, they're the first to smile for the camera when things go right, but they rarely take responsibility when things go wrong. They're known for throwing people under the bus, perhaps even driving the bus. You know, we know that good leaders take credit for the good and the bad. It's just part of the job. 2, they avoid conflict at all costs. They love consensus and hate disagreement. They do not ever have uncomfortable conversations. 3, they micromanage everyone. They'll ask you to do something, then they'll email you about it, then they'll ask you again, then they'll ask the person that they told you to meet with about it, rinse and repeat. They never trust anyone completely, and thus never empower or delegate authority as a result. It must be truly exhausting for them. 4, they do not communicate well or sometimes even at all. You know, a toxic person will tell you one thing one day and something different the next. They change their mind very quickly. 5, they assume that everyone is on call 24/7, no matter your level of responsibility or pay. This is just a blatant disrespect for personal time. 6, they have no boundaries. They send emails and texts at all times, hours, and days, and get upset when they don't receive a reply. So these are texts and emails that could clearly wait until Monday. Why is it so important for you to reply on Saturday night or Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon when you are not on the clock? You're having family time or personal time. Well, these toxic individuals are narcissists, and they have an idea that needs attention right away, and they need validation of their ideas immediately. Again, basic, blatant disrespect for personal time. 7, they do not plan, they just react. So there's never a strategic plan of the organization. They just keep pivoting. Sometimes it becomes a nightmarish version of the hokey pokey. They pivot so often. And 8, they focus on short-term optics without ever trying to resolve the actual root problem or resolve the cause of the problem. So they just like Band-Aids. They like a fresh coat of paint, not actually discussing the problem. 9, they ignore turnovers completely. They never want to rehash why someone leaves, as it may reflect poorly on them. They would rather demonize the person as being disloyal or not a good fit. I once worked with a CEO who said that he wasn't in the business of begging people to stay. Says a lot about the organization. And 10, they are opinionated, but without any actual positive reinforcement. So you'll know that you did something wrong, but they're not going to help you do it right. They really don't help you succeed in any way. You know, what I realized was that when we receive positive reinforcement, we work harder. It motivates us and inspires us. When the converse occurs, we ask ourselves, why bother? So please do not underestimate the power of positive reinforcement and praise. So, okay, now you know who these people are. How do you cope with them? My caveat for you is that if you have an opportunity to leave a toxic work environment, please do so for your own sake. If you can go and find another position at a different place, please go cut and run. However, sometimes we can't leave an organization for other reasons. And if that is the case, then it's important for you to develop some coping mechanisms to limit the effects on your mental well-being. So here's my deliverable. How do we rise above the chaos? Well, I like to call it the David Bowie Rolling Stones method of rising above the chaos. I'm sure you're saying, what? So it's all about 3 steps. Changes, and you can't always get what you want, but you might just find you get what you need. So let's break it down, okay? The first change is change your perspective. Accept that we cannot change other people, however, we can change ourselves. Gandhi famously said, if we could change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would change. As a man changes his own nature, so does the attitude of the world change towards him. So show our high levels of emotional intelligence by being the change we want to see in the organization. Become empowered. The knowledge that your toxic person's bad behavior is rooted in deep, deep insecurity. So I know this is hard, but try not to take their words and actions personally. When a boss micromanages you, just focus on the task, because if you're going to stay, you have to get the job done. So lastly, and I know this is difficult, try to minimize your interactions with this toxic person. And I know this is hard, and I'm not telling you to be insubordinate, but if there's an opportunity to work from your desk or work remotely or have a phone conversation and not see the person or work without that person, do so. It will make everything more tolerable for you, and you'll be able to focus on the task. 2, our other change your approach. So you need to accept that this toxic person has their own communication style. Stop challenging it. They don't like challenges. Embrace it. The more that you learn about their communication preferences, the better you can adapt and have more efficient and effective conversations with them. When they text and email on the weekends and evenings, establish boundaries. Answer at an appropriate time. Figure out your limits. We can't control other people, but we can control how we respond to them. Choose how you respond, but keep the relationship professional. Make sure that you respond in a respectful, positive, professional manner. All right, and 3, you can't always get what you want, but you might just find you get what you need. So this is hard. You need to be strong enough to know that you may never receive the positive praise and credit you deserve for your exceptional work from this type of person. You need to draw on your inner resources to continue. You need to be confident in yourself that it doesn't matter if you don't get the credit you deserve or 1 iota of praise. You're going to focus on helping the organization. Toxic people don't want to hear the negatives, so make sure that you can make a contribution that's positive. You need to build trust with this person. And so if you know that they come from a place of fear and they demonstrate poor communication skills, help them. Become a trusted partner. Show them you can be trusted to focus on positive tasks for the organization. So if time is your most valuable currency, where are you going to spend it? How much time are you going to give this person or this issue or this problem? Your health and well-being and your family are much more important than any toxic person. So I hope that after today, you have learned about quick nudgy and how important it is to have it in your arsenal. That you've learned the tremendous benefits, both professionally and personally, of reflective listening, and that you now know how to recognize a toxic individual and how to cope if you have to stay. All people are truly looking for is dignity. And if you are dealing with a toxic person, you feel the loss of your dignity. You feel disrespected and demeaned. Rise above the chaos today with the David Bowie Rolling Stones method. There's a great saying circulating right now. It says, here's to strong women. May we know them, may we be them, may we raise them. I like to apply to what we talked about today. Here's to bad bosses. May we never know them, may we never be them, may we learn to steer clear of them. Thank you. Have a great day.